getting from trees, you know, and 3 sisal plantations, you know, the fiber to make the twine, Cuba, Mexico, and the Philippines. So here's guys in our archives in Missouri somewhere cutting down our hardwood. I mean,
Deering. Deering, Missouri.
Deering, Missouri. Oh, thank you. Here's the steel mill a few years later, certainly, but you know, Wisconsin Steel in Chicago. Largest lumber yard in the world, McCormick Works, I believe. Coal mine in Benham, Kentucky. You know, a whole coal town. I almost have another slide here, but I don't. But, you know. Many of you guys know some of this, but here's the Philippines, and you know, I have the twine ball in there just so somebody, this presentation is designed for corporate folks who know none of the history that you guys know, but here they are in the Yucatan, and here's one of my favorite stories that some of you may know, but in the archives we've got 24,000 20 peso notes, counterfeit, and so in the Yucatan, the governor of the Yucatan in 1915 was breaking away from Mexico, starting his own revolution, needed funding, looked around, and who had more money than anybody else? Well, International Harvester. So he went to our agent down there who was in charge of things and really extorted. I mean, he said, you know, I need you to loan me some money. I need you to loan me $500,000 in cash. Yes?
I wonder if I can order them up and look at them.
Oh, yes.
I'm going back.
Yes. Yes. Sure you can. Sure. They're there. I mean, just skids of them. It's crazy.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah. So we were paid back in pesos, which were not worth the paper they were printed on. But the deal was our guy got to get his order of fiber, of sisal, out of Mexico. He got to get it. He made his delivery because he gave in, but he had to go to a bank in New York and get, you know, cash for these guys. And the guy bought gunboats and rifles and munitions to run his revolution. And we financed that, you know. The guy didn't know what, our guy didn't know what to do. But, and then you know, there was all Senate hearings then about that operation, about us having a monopoly on the sisal business. And, you know, it's a long story here, but I won't go there. Most of you guys know this story, but our early engines, our guys, you know, Ellis at Deering and E.A. Johnston. I mean, there's the man that invented trucks for us. There's the man that invented gasoline engines for us. So many other products, right? He had a lot to do with the binders, twine binders. E.A. Johnston was McCormick's genius engineer that McCormick wasn't himself, or Cyrus Jr. wasn't himself. This was the guy. And where did he go? The tractor company in Sterling, Illinois? He left. After 11 years, he left, and McCormick said, no. He bought the whole tractor company the guy went to and brought him back. I mean, he says, I can fix this. You know, so, you know, a competitive businessman, Cyrus and his son. Our first motorized anything was a mower, and didn't go into production. Deering had one at the same show, the same year. One of ours was the auto hyphen mower, and one of his was the auto mower, or the other way around. There was a hyphen in one name, but same name, damn near same product. But you know, trucks came along real soon, the cars, and we didn't go into production on that. But you know, right after the merger, we just went into manufacturing overseas. It just became more and more apparent that that's what we needed to do to be competitive. And you know, if you saturate the market, you got to go. I mean, what McDonald's figured that out. You know, Kentucky Fried Chicken figured out. You know, go to China. If you've covered the U.S., if every town has a KFC, then what do you do next? You know, go somewhere else. This is a photo I love of the Reaper Works in Chicago. There's a note, a handwritten note on the bottom in the negative that says quitting time at McCormick's, M-I-C''S. This is hanging in the CFO's office. I did a whole series on our corporate headquarters, and at this point I think the office was in this is the second Reaper plant. This is the one on the south side. But there's kids in here. I mean, if you look, you probably can't see there, but there's little kids. I mean, there's probably 12-year-olds in there. There's a guy on a bicycle. You can't see between the two buildings, on a catwalk between the two buildings, there's a guy on a bicycle up there. This is one of my favorite photos. It's to me, it's fine art. I mean, it's just, this could be a Cezanne painting or something. It's just the light, the guy, you know, and you can see how the plant worked, right? It was a big steam engine or something powering all these belts for all the machines. It wasn't, you know, electric motors every couple of feet or, this is in Australia, our first assembly plant there. This is obviously in the 20s, you can see the farmalls there, but for a long time, we shipped stuff in crates to Australia, and then it was assembled over there. Just early engine stuff that did I mean, I've got photos in boats, powering boats, trains, everything imaginable our engines did. And they seemed to get bigger as time went on. First tractors, you know, I mean, one of these was made, which one? The Mogul was made by somebody else for us. Then we started making our own in 1908. And, you know, what, 1910 we had 1/3 of all the US tractor production. That's a lot of tractors. The auto buggy and then the auto wagon. Again, most of you guys know this. I love the Johnston prototype of the buggy with a tiller rather than a wheel. I mean, wish I had that for a museum, you know. You know, it was the farmer's wagon. I mean, officially known as the auto wagon, but, you know, in everybody's words, it was the farmer's wagon. It was exactly what they needed, and what a great entry into the motorized vehicle market, right? If you're working with farmers for how many years and then have a ready audience? I guess most of you know what it looks like underneath, but I'm impressed when I see this. When George Mitchell was at Red Power a few years ago, he had one disassembled, and it was neat to see how the machine really works underneath. Air-cooled all those vents, just like what a motorcycle engine would get.
Little fans out there.
Yes. Yes, right. Blowing right on. I mean, air-cooled, but not just relying on the wind going down the road.
Yeah.
It's, you know, this, I have a copy here. Maybe many of you have seen it, I guess. But the first commercial film, not just our first commercial film, but the first commercial film anywhere ever. I mean, and it was at S&A Studios in Chicago. When Chicago was, before we went to Hollywood, Chicago was the center of the film industry, and S&A was the premier studio. Charlie Chaplin shot a lot of his films there, Gloria Swanson, and we made a film there that they showed in movie theaters. And it's really not a commercial, but extremely heavy product placement. I mean, every time you turn around, there's another McCormick something. But it's fun to see the old stuff running in, you know, 1911. You know, the copy I have is from 1931 with the voiceover and the narrator, which I don't care for at all, but it's the only copy I have. It's from the archives. You know, the machines kept getting bigger. The trucks kept, you know, we got two water-cooled. You know, we got. You know, I always thought when I looked at these at first that, you know, the engine was under the hood. Then I thought, well, the radiator's under. You know, I eventually figured out that, you know, there was sometimes water under there and sometimes gasoline under there, but the engine was still always below. I just did a big study on buses. I've got the bus posters here. But when we did the Milestones book and when we did our Heritage Ring in Lisle, we thought the first buses were the S-Series in the 20s, and they were actually, way back, people were taking auto wagons and converting them to buses. I love this series of trucks. Most of you know about them, I'm sure, but you know, the radiators in back, because the teamsters, the guys handling the horses, would bust the radiators on trucks, walk down the street with a baseball bat, and they hated the competition, so they moved. It's a Renault style sloped hood, and the radiators, in fact, the whole engine's in there backwards, but it works and they're stylish, I think. In the chairman's office now, I've got some of these photos in frames on a big montage. And just the farm equipment, I mean, we kept buying implement makers, and that line seemed to grow and grow and grow. I mean, The PTO is another innovation. Johnston was in France, I think, and he saw a farmer had rigged one PTO himself, and came back home and said, "Damn, that's a good idea." And when I met Fred Krisman at that 100th year anniversary party in Chicago, he had one of his D-series trucks that he'd restored, and there was a PTO on the side of it, and he explained to me what that was about, because I'm always learning, but I didn't know what that was at the time. Okay, this is the fun part here. Harold McCormick. He did some important things for the company. He introduced this, employee rights plan, including no discrimination, which was pretty advanced, I think, for 1919. But Harold was really the playboy of the family. If you have, in today's billions of dollars, his older brother ran the company for most of the time. Harold was president for 4 years, so he married Edith Rockefeller. I suppose most of you know that. He divorced her soon, or a little later. But he did things like he had Frank Lloyd Wright design him a house for the North Shore of Chicago, and rejected it. He was a friend with Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright went off to Europe in a depression after that, couldn't stand being rejected. It's one of my favorites. So when Harold divorced Rockefeller, he married this Polish opera singer who had no talent whatsoever. I mean, he did everything. He hired voice coaches, he had people write operas for her, he bought an opera house in Paris for her. And unlike a lot of the legend has it, the most famous film of all time, Citizen Kane, was really based on the life of Harold and his second wife. And Orson Welles, in an interview on a DVD with Roger Ebert, admits that. It's kind of remarkable that this guy did so many things.
Now we're all going to go watch that movie.
Yeah. His third wife was his nursemaid. When he was 66 years old, he was, I think they call him a convalescent, 66-year-old, married his 34-year-old wife, who was his nurse. And for the wedding, he had 60 armed guards on his estate in Hollywood or in Los Angeles. It just kind of tells you the lifestyle. 60 armed guards for your wedding to your nurse. I mean, and his wife wanted him to have a portrait painted. Salvador Dali. That's not the artist I would pick. If I was going to have a portrait of my wife done, it wouldn't be Salvador Dali. But he, Harold invested in flying machines. He bought an airport in Cicero. And this was his plane that his father-in-law, Rockefeller, also invested in. But obviously it didn't go anywhere. We started working with the government in World War I. We made wagons, machine gun carts, and trucks. Our trucks were only used on the US bases. We didn't send them off overseas, but we had the best dealership network, so every military base was close to a dealer. They could get things repaired, they could get new trucks, they could do whatever they needed quickly. So everybody but us, almost everybody but us, made Liberty trucks. I don't know, what were the 18 different makers of Liberty trucks? And most of them went out of business when the war was over. All we made was the back end, the box. And I didn't realize that for a while, but we did. We made, those are photos from Chicago of the box. When I was working with the agency, the Navistar defense people came to me and said, Tom, we're going to these trade shows, we're showing all our wares, and everybody thinks Navistar Defense has been in business for 3 or 4 years. And we need to change that perception. We need to show them. So I did this timeline, and they put it on the wall here at the trade show, and it shows that, we go back as far as World War I. And it apparently helped them make a point. Some of this is just photo album stuff. So this is from my looking at Australia recently, and I just kind of like that building photo, but and this is kind of chronological, so some things may seem out of place. This is one of the greatest guys that ever ran our company, Alexander Legg, because Cyrus Jr. knew Woodrow Wilson. To Woodrow Wilson, International Harvester was industry. He needed somebody to talk to about industry. It was always, so he called Cyrus Jr. and said, I need somebody to help me write the Treaty of Versailles. I need somebody to write the business section, the Treaty of Versailles. I mean, I don't know, I studied that in junior high or high school, I think. I mean, it's kind of incredible. So our guy, Legg wrote this story you probably all know, the speed trucks and the Red Baby, but just brilliant marketing to send a truck out to all these farmers. You know, there weren't phones, you just, to be in contact with your customer regularly, you send out a truck and you deliver, you pick up, you stop and you chat, you befriend, you develop a customer relationship. And the Red Babies did that here all over the US and Canada. This I have in here just to show scale. I know a lot of people I would show this to at the office wouldn't be able to comprehend the scale this company once was, but look at these Titan tractors. I mean, look at the sea of them. There has to be thousands in that photo. I mean, it's just remarkable to me. You know, the farm equipment we were always working on a better harvester or threshers. You know, every year something got improved and better. Here, early tractor trailers, still with chain drive. I mean, I don't know how that works, but I guess it did. Here's a bus, an S-Series bus from 1924, still in use. I'd love to buy that bus. Some just truck models that you guys know, I'm sure, but we helped build the New York subway system with our trucks. Here, innovation again, the replaceable cylinder sleeve. That was our deal. Everybody else would have to, rebore an engine or something? Big work to pull an engine out of a truck. We invented this, and for a long time we were the only ones doing it. Now, I mean, like maybe 2 years or something it became commonplace, but our deal, and still today, I'm trying to tell that story. All I could get was new ones, but I got one used as a prop to tell that story. Just great photos. I just love some of the photos I come across. Just great dealer photos. Okay, now, in my mind, beyond the Reaper, this is the most world-changing product we ever did, the Farmall Regular. I mean, it changed everything about farming. It was, it finally had enough power. It was small enough. It wasn't one of those giant steam monsters. It didn't crush everything as it went down the rows. Turning radius, high ground clearance. I did a video of a guy at Red Power a few years ago, and he talked about his grandmother telling a story that I guess was in the early 30s when they were selling, I don't know what version it would be, but it was close to a regular, and they took in trade in 1 year, one dealership took in trade for tractors, 400 horses. Had a whole farm just filled. Next year they said, we can't do this anymore. But this really put horses out of work all around the globe. I mean, this did change the world. And, and they spent years working on it to figure it out. When I was working on the museum, this is one of the themes that came out of all the research. This company just didn't give up. They would, I know not, maybe all these aren't part of the regular, but they tried and tried and tried and perfected something, interviewed farmers, like, a lot like we did for the ProStar a few years ago. We, spent 1 million hours of research. Here's just to show you again that we were everywhere, way back when, India and China. Here's a photo I just love. Some guy's got a thresher or something, propelled by a motor, but I think it's also a running vehicle. It's just like, it's a contraption. All we made was the engine, but I just enjoy it. Somebody is very inventive. This is an ad in the US about, directed at Japanese businesses, telling them, I don't know what, business executives here that, you know, it's written in English, it's about our products for Japan. Here's a great photo, I think, of the Fort Wayne office, 1929. This, okay, another thing that, you know, the 2-speed rear axle in the 6-speed special, that changed the world. We figured that out. We made a truck that could run in the farm fields and go off on the, not highways, but roads. We made a truck that could run uphill. We made a truck that nobody else, I mean, we were the first to do that. And I think it's a big deal. Brinks we've worked with for nearly 100 years, I think. I had to do a book. Dan Houston, the former chairman, was presenting to the retiring chairman of Brinks a couple years ago, and I made a custom book. Here's Dan signing it over to Michael Dan, the retiring chairman of Brinks. Brinks has their own museum in Chicago, and the book on the right there is the thing I made for it. It was interesting. They gave me photos, and I gave them photos, you know, worked with their historian. I love the Hull Scott trucks. I'm learning more and more about them. And I love this early crawler that really, you know, looks like part farm tractor, part crawler, kind of a. And this story, not in Milestones, a story we missed for Milestones. The Hoover Dam, maybe you've seen the video, but the Hoover Dam, obviously biggest construction project of all time, or at that point. And we had an exclusive contract to use, 6 companies used our trucks for that job. Near the end of the 3-year deal, other makers' trucks ended up on the job site, but for the most part, they were our trucks. They ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, there's no cabs, it's open cab. A lot of the guys are wearing felt hats. The rocks that are being dumped into those beds are, you know, 4 times the size of this table or something. I mean, it was a remarkable project. And they drove backwards a lot. They stood up. Unfortunately, many people that died at that job site were run over, but the guys stood up and drove their trucks backwards down hills. Crazy stuff. And this is my friend George Kirkham's restored truck. It's perfect. His video of him on, if you buy Craig Swanson's videos, George is in there talking about the restoration project on this truck, and then he drives it. But it's a truck that belongs in the Smithsonian, I think. I mean, it's quite the vehicle. You know, the A series was interesting. I love the shot of the early sleeper cab there on that truck. Again, tandem axle. We worked that deal out with Hendrickson, who was a partner of ours. We built things for Hendrickson. Hendrickson built things for us. I don't know, one of us made fire engines. I think they made the fire engines. It was a true partner. But for 14 years, we had an exclusive deal with them on tandem axles. So nobody else had tandem axles. And on a job site, if you don't have power in all those wheels back there, I mean, our trucks were just far superior to anybody's. This was, you know, I mean, yes. Did we invent it entirely on our own? No, but we owned it. First diesel in 1933. Obviously not the first diesel in the world, but our first. I love the C-Series trucks. I think I saw one out here, at least one. I have discovered that my guys in industrial design said, Tom, you know that's a Chevy grill. I said, what do you mean? Well, and you know, and I think I mean, it looks an awful lot like a Chevy, but today in industrial design, our guys look as much at car design as they do at truck design when they're designing a new truck. I mean, they take it all in and look for the best. They don't copy maybe like this, but they really explore the automotive world. But either way, I love that C-Series. you know, so many of our trucks became, you know, chassis for buses. I love the early cab overs, you know, the pre-war stuff. That just the style of that one on the upper right is just too cool for me. I mean,
We're featured in the C series next year at the Roundup. C and D series.
I'll be there.
I know 3 of them.
You know, Raymond Loewy designed. Raymond Loewy, if you don't know, was the most famous industrial designer of the 20th century. He designed locomotives. He designed toasters. He designed the Coca-Cola bottle. He designed automobiles. He designed everything, and he was like the first superstar designer. And we hired him, you know, to do things like the letter series of Farmals, the Metro cream separators, our dealerships. He designed the templates for our dealerships. And two photos we just found in the archives with the help of Guy Fay 2 months ago maybe. 2 concepts that Raymond Loewy produced. These are clay models attached to production trucks. 2 designs. He was supposed to be updating the D series, and both were rejected, but I swear nobody's seen those photos in 60 years or something. I mean, they've been, you know, gathering dust. And everybody in my truck designer friends, the one on the left, they just think is a hot rod as is. I mean, they take it as is. They love it. You know, tractors kept getting bigger, obviously. Crawlers, you know, I'm learning more about crawlers every day with some of your help here, but big business. The D series. When we were doing the Lone Star, we had Carnegie Mellon University do a study on what was the most international of all international trucks. What was the heart of the DNA of an international truck? And they came back with the D series. They said this was your best looking, most international, most original truck. And so that became the model for the Lone Star truck that we did a couple of years ago. When we went back with Cummins, I did a story on our history with Cummins. So we started in 1938, and it really started with our West Coast dealers. Their customers were always asking them for more power. And we, the dealers, took apart a truck and put a Cummins engine in it and extended the whole, I mean, I can't imagine how these guys were pretty clever. So they made long nose truck with a Cummins engine, and it was a hit. Everybody wanted one. So in that same year, in 38, this happened in March or April. By November, we were putting Cummins engines in our trucks. So, I mean, I don't think the company today could make that adjustment on the fly like that, but it was impressive, I think. Just the Cummins engine from the get out. I love the robots. I know Daryl. You have one?
Tracto.
Yeah, well, he's coming up.
We need to build that.
Oh, you got a Tracto.
We need to build that one.
Yeah, that was his buddy, I guess.
I love these.
That was an early one.
You know, this is Melbourne, 1938, where we assembled things, had the sales offices, the whole headquarters. So here's the Australian plants we had. You know, Geelong was making the farm equipment. We actually made construction equipment. I think we assembled construction equipment over there, but we manufactured tractors, farm equipment, trucks, and engines. I mean, we had a foundry for the engines, and we were all over. I mean, we had a proving ground here in the lower left. We had a design center. We had 3 plants. Kind of remarkable. You know, just this is not Australia. Just kind of in sequence. Engines, buses to the D series with a Woody down there. Somebody was interested in Woody buses. Okay, in Geelong, we opened the plant, and as soon as we got there, the Air Force took over the plant, took over 2/3 of the plant to build bombers. You can see maybe in the lower right, there are barracks that surround the perimeter there. Those are military barracks, and those are planes on the ground parked in front of the International Harvester sign. So we were trying to do business there, and I guess we were good sports or had no choice, but we, here's a Cyrus McCormick stamp that I just, seems like an honor to me, you know, to be on a U.S. postage stamp. He must have been somebody. The K series, I love them. KB more, but you know, some great photos. This, I love this image. Looks like Norman Rockwell to me, but it's, this ad I picked out to hang in the chairman's office. It's right next to his door to his inner office. You know, making torpedoes, I had no idea originally, but, and this I love, a publicity photo. A publicity photo, you know, for the, they just made the torpedo and now they're, I was hoping I wouldn't get in trouble showing that, but nobody's, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't know. Springfield here, we made all the half tracks here, and about, what, 13,000 of them? Kind of remarkable. And here with Charles de Gaulle, after the Allies took back Paris, here he's marching past a series of, so another brush with greatness, right? Or something, or, you know, that's history to me right there. During the war, you know, the tractorettes, we taught all the women left at home how to run and maintain farm equipment. I think it was brilliant because the refrigerators came soon after this, I think, and they were, all the women were, you know, now our friends, or they knew the company better than before. Here, just another one of my favorite shots in the archives, you know, rocket launchers off our trucks in battle at Iwo Jima. I mean, that's, we don't get battle photos today. Just how many trucks we made for the military, again, just sheer volume.